I'm James Malonis. I am one of your Central Area Directors for OREA and also the 2020 YPN Committee Chair. And this is the very first OREA YPN Master Series that we are kicking off for 2020. And I have asked my good friend Mark Mclean. Actually, Mark was in talks with last year's YPN Committee to do a webinar for Key Living, and I guess timing just didn't work out, and then COVID hit. So we're really lucky we have Mark with us today. So Mark has quite the resume, and I'm going to recite this to the best that I can. So Mark Mclean is a sought-after veteran in the real estate industry with over 30 years of experience growing and leading the most established and largest brokerages in Canada. He brings a wealth of knowledge as former president of the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, director at large of OREA, and now to Key Living, a new PropTech company which is set to launch a creative, new and affordable ownership model into Toronto and other global cities around the world. Key Living's new co-equity model is designed to help those who can't qualify for a traditional mortgage Key Living's new co-equity model is designed to help those who can't qualify for a traditional mortgage own real estate for just $15,000. By fundamentally changing the way real estate works, Key makes financial prosperity and homeownership realistic and attainable. Mark, it's all yours.
Hey. All right. Well, thanks, James. And I really appreciate being the guy that kicks off this series. It's quite an honor. And with me today, I have Rob Richards, who's the co-founder and CEO of Key, and he's going to help me present this presentation. And then we've got two interns that are working with us over the summer, Nick and Julia, who are also on the call, and they'll may be able to answer some questions if you have in the chat. And I thought I'd start with kind of my why, and then let you know a little bit, and then Rob can tell you a little bit about his story, because really, really interesting a journey that he's had. But you know, I was the past president of the Toronto Real Estate Board a couple of years ago, and you know, one of the things that I did a lot of was media tours, media engagements, and I always had the same message, which was, you know, it's so important, number one, use a realtor, because that's what we all are. But number two is to buy real estate. Buying real estate was the single most important thing a person could do, because not only was it kind of a way of forced savings that would help you into retirement and help you get on that property ladder and build wealth that way in a very easy kind of way. But what we know about people who own houses or own any kind of real estate is that, you know, they have a better life. They're more house proud. Their apartments or their houses are cleaner. Their kids are better educated. Their kids are happier. Their life is so much better. And so this to me is really one of the fundamental pillars of our company, that we were able to help people get into the real estate market. So the challenge, of course, is that, you know, we're in a market, especially in Toronto, but in basically every global city around the world, where prices are just out of reach for so many people. And so I used to say to people, listen, it's so important to get into the market that what you really should do is we used to say, drive until you qualify, which is basically get in your car and start driving outside the city until such time that your money would actually buy something. And if there's one thing that I would take back, it's really that, because quite frankly, you know, when you're driving an hour and a half into the city every day, you're not super productive, and when you get home, your nerves are frazzled, and it's not so good. And so what I want to talk a little bit about today is what Rob and I are going to talk about is what the new model is and how we kind of want to position it. And I think it's really important that we talk about what's in it for you as a realtor. That I think is really a primary function, because, you know, we've always said that there's a place for the realtor in our model. It's better for us to stand on the shoulders of giants, right? Stand on this huge army, 50,000 person army, and let them, help us and reward them for their kind of service. So Rob, over to you.
Thanks very much, Mark. And I'm so pleased and honored to have Mark on our senior management team. He brings such a wealth of knowledge, but he really cares about the realtor industry. And he wants to make sure that you guys evolve with the innovations in technology that are coming to real estate and to PropTech. we all know it's a burgeoning industry now. You know, the $220 trillion residential real estate industry is long overdue for disruption. It's an industry, because of its size and its entrenchment, that it's inherently resistant to change. But it will change, and it is changing, and now it's changing rapidly. And there are many, many companies in the business of trying to either smooth the path to home ownership, and you hear about iBuyers like Open Door and Zero Down and all these VC funded companies that are smoothing the path to ownership, but they're not fundamentally changing it, because in those models you still have to qualify for a mortgage either right away or a few years downstream in order to buy them out, and they're funded by sort of short-term investment capital. So you only have a limited period of time to stake your ownership claim in those models, and if you can't, something like COVID hits, and 2 years of maybe making less money or whatever happens, a recession for any reason, and you're in trouble with those models, and you wind up losing money. So I'm a longtime technology guy, and I'll briefly describe my journey to founding Key. I've worked in the tech industry for 36 years. Don't want to date myself, but there it is. And in the 90s, I was part of a new wave of companies called software as a service, and I ran the first SaaS company in Canada. And you guys may or may not know that term, but when you use software as young people, you use software as a service. There's no way you're going to be buying a license to something and installing that on your machines. I mean, you just rent software over the internet. It's become commonplace, and it's the way we use software. But it was a massive shift. I mean, we took a huge industry where the enterprises would use a capital budget. They'd have to buy a software license for like $1 million from SAP, and then implement it on an internal cost structure. Everybody had their own server farms and their own IT people to run software for the enterprise. And what we did with software as a service is we externalized all that. So we changed it now to where it became an operating expense instead of a capital expense. And it became something where all the cost structures to support it were externalized from the enterprise onto big tech. And now we have Amazon Web Services and Google Cloud and Microsoft Azure. And now the software is pennies on the dollar. It's literally 1/100th the price to run software now as it used to be 20 years ago. Amazing innovation. And the pace of innovation increased so dramatically because now all these entrepreneurs could write software as a service and create all these new business models and get it onto the internet quickly and inexpensively. And they can distribute updates daily if they want to everybody, instantaneously and automatically. There was no going around and updating with disks into everybody's server farm. So it just has morphed software into this fundamentally easier to own, easier to run, easier to get in, easier to get out, easier to change. You can try software now for free, or maybe then sign up for $20 a month. Like, it's so different than it was 20 years ago. And we want to do the very same thing for home ownership. So as a tech guy that built the SaaS industry, helped build that industry, and I've been for the last dozen years running a venture capital firm inside one of the larger condominium developers in Toronto. And I've been observing firsthand just how, since 2008, everything's been turned upside down. Prior to 2008, Plaza Corp sold all of its condos to end user buyers. After 2008, that number went to almost zero, and we sell half to foreign investors and half to domestic investors. And this has created a situation where now our young people are locked out. They're locked off the property ladder. They're stuck renting for the majority of their adult lives from investor owners. And so homeownership is just unattainable. And it's not just Toronto or Vancouver, it's everywhere. It's a common problem around the world, and we have to fix it. And so 5 years ago, I started thinking about, okay, so how would I take the lessons learned in software as a service and apply that to real estate? And let's reimagine residential real estate now as a digital service. Make it easy to get in, much lower entry point, make it easier to consume, make it easier to get out. And so that's what we're doing. And so my first why is, everybody's locked out. Young people, new Canadians, you just can't get on the property ladder. And that's where our grandparents and parents built family wealth, as Mark was talking about. That's reason number one. Reason number two, the 200-year-old system of real estate just doesn't work for today's consumer. You know, we've counted it up. There are over 40 steps to buy a condo. 40 people you have to talk to, research you have to do, lawyers you have to get, inspectors, engineers. Like it's so full of friction. And then it locks you in because you have to qualify for this big mortgage, and then you have to sacrifice your quality of life in order to service that mortgage. Your cash outflow on a monthly basis is way higher than renting the equivalent unit. And so this financially scary thing is just too hard to buy. And then even if you do, you're stuck with these unknowns. I mean, we're seeing all over the place condo owners getting stuck with $25,000 and $35,000 capital calls because their garage is crumbling, or their swimming pool is breaking, or the windows are falling off the building. And you just don't know, getting into that purchase, how well is your volunteer condo board actually running this, you know, $200 million or $300 million piece of infrastructure. It's a volunteer board. They have no business managing a piece of infrastructure of that size. And how well is it being managed? What's going to happen? You know, am I going to be on the hook? And you just don't know these things. And so what we've tried to do is say, okay, let's devise a model here where we take all of those unknowns, all of those risks, and all of that capital intensity off the shoulders of the consumer and put it onto the shoulders of the corporation where it can be better managed, right? So that's my why, is just to create a new way to own.
Amazing. Thanks, Rob. And I think there's one thing I was listening to a talk that you gave a little while ago. One of the things that you mentioned, which I think is so important, and what we're seeing right now inside the condo world is happening right now in British Columbia, where, you know, insurance companies are jacking their insurance claim, like their insurance premiums through the roof.
Tripling them in some cases.
Tripling them. There you go.
Tripling.
Because these buildings are all now starting to fall apart. Because, you know, let's face it, we do have a certain standard for how we build condos. That's the city bylaw or the city building codes, which is totally fine. The buildings will stand. But builders, for the most part, are building an investor product, right? They're not building, you know, they're not building homes, right? And I think that's an interesting thing. So what we find today in Toronto and for the most part in Canada is just this amount of time that it takes, you know, for you to actually save up and buy a home. And they're saying it's 21 years for most people to save that 20% deposit. It's just, that's a lifetime for so many people. In British Columbia, what's the number, Rob? It's like 26 or 27? 29 years, yeah. So
I asked a couple of millennials at SoftBank in Silicon Valley, what is it like for them? And one of them drew an infinity sign, and the other one just sort of threw her hands up in disgust. They have no idea when they're ever going to happen.
And I've seen it firsthand. It's just getting out of control. And so this, of course, obviously, this means that, you know, if you can actually get into the market, you are faced with, you know, huge deposits, huge closing costs, big taxes, big down payments, all these sort of things. And that's really the trouble. And for me, you know, knowing what I know about how important it is to own, what I see is this kind of wall that's being built between the haves and the have-nots. So, you know, if you're lucky enough to own, you've made it into the property ladder, and you can actually go up from there. But if you are stuck renting, the challenge is that, you know, prices of real estate are going up faster than your wages. And so, you know, once you rent, you're basically stuck. It'll be very, very hard for you to ever rent again. And so really, anybody, youth, young people, millennials, or so on and so forth, are really left with kind of two options. You rent or you buy. And quite frankly, the real estate industry has geared to only know these two things. You buy, you sell, or you rent. That's it. There is no other opportunity to get into the real estate market until today. So, you know, we've got a great opportunity now to create a third option, and Rob is going to let us know what that is.
So we started thinking, could we, with home ownership as a service, could we preserve the real benefits, the true benefits of ownership, while providing all the freedoms of renting at the same time? And we should be able to do that with an as a service model. So when you think about it, what are the real benefits of ownership? And there are fundamentally two from a you know, physical and financial perspective that then breeds a third psychological benefit. And the two benefits are, you've got an equity stake in the place where you live, and that's going to grow in value with the underlying real estate. That's the main thing. And then you've got security. You've got security. Nobody can kick you out. It's your house. There's no dreaded 60-day knock on the door that happens to condo renters all the time now, where the owner's, daughter's going to go to U of T, and now you got 60 days to find a new place. That happens thousands of times a year in downtown Toronto. And so you've got equity, you've got security, and then with that comes the pride and comfort and status of being a homeowner. And you just think differently. You take better care. Yeah, as Mark said, you're a happier, it's a better place to raise a family. And it just has a lot of intangible benefits and psychological benefits. So how do we provide that and the freedoms of renting at the same time, where you don't have a mortgage? You got no personal debt associated with our model. You can give very short notice and go. In fact, it's even better than renting. With Key, it's just 30 days and you're gone. And there's no costs of leaving the system. And there's no buy-sell friction. You don't have to sell your house. You just go and you get your equity back. We give you liquidity every month. And so no hiring of agents, no staging, no open houses, no lack of privacy, no hassles, none of the 8% selling cost. All that's done is an as-a-service model. So how it works, so Key acquires billions of dollars worth of condominiums. We hold them in a mutual fund trust, which is a trust structure very much like a regular mutual fund that you buy from Bank of Montreal. And we then say, okay, Toronto, we're going to calculate a value every month for all of this real estate in Toronto. And that's what investors buy into the sort of Toronto pool. We do the same in Vancouver or San Francisco or Shanghai or Berlin. And so we have these city-based pools of real estate. Now, as an owner resident, let me talk first about investors. So this creates a very attractive asset class for long-term patient capital. And that's really a key to Key, if I may, is the fact that it's not short-term thinking, it's long-term thinking. We get patient capital from sovereign funds and endowments and the long-term investors, pension funds. And we get that capital to fund all of this real estate. So it's fully funded from institutional capital and commercial debt. So no individual mortgages. It's like a commercial mortgage or a commercial debt. And now we can let owner residents buy in for just $15,000, right? So we're saying it starts at 15 grand. And what you get for that is you get an official co-ownership position on what's a 50-year lease. It's like a lifetime lease, but it really is ownership. It's a co-ownership function. So for 15 grand, you're a co-owner of your suite. And then on a monthly basis, you can buy up your equity or you can sell it down. You have to keep that minimum of 15 grand in. Gives us like 6 months income interruption flexibility to deal with things like COVID-19. But on a monthly basis, you can put in more. If you get a bonus, if your aunt leaves you some money, if you can save another couple $100 a month from your salary, just every time you can, just put that money into owning more. What you do with a mortgage now, if you buy what's called an open mortgage, then on the anniversary, you can put in whatever much more capital you want. They don't penalize you for that. Well, this is open on a monthly basis. It's just completely liquid. And on the other hand, say you've got 50 grand of equity now and you need to take 10,000 out to fund your wedding or to take that trip to Europe, you can just do it. You just redeem some equity. And it doesn't really cost anything, just a few basis points of transaction fee, as opposed to having to go out and get a home equity line of credit or a reverse mortgage, and you're paying huge fees and signing contracts and doing all that BS that's part of the friction of home ownership now. And then one last really important point to make here is that right now, your home is just static bricks and mortar. It doesn't give you value beyond growing in equity, which is great because that's a huge value. But what if we could activate that real estate? What if you could utilize Airbnb in a proper institutionalized way, only the highest quality guests, everything handled for you. You don't have to worry about it, payments, cleaning, everything done. And it's all compliant with the regulatory environment in Toronto and every other city because it's principal residence only, it's true home sharing. What if you could integrate that as easy as just a couple clicks on an app? I'm visiting my parents for the next 4 days, make it so, and boom, you got $1,000 in your account, right? And what if we could take all of your everyday spending? You're spending on dog walkers or groceries or food delivery or whatever you spend your money on a regular basis, month to month. What if we could monetize that? What if we could aggregate the demand from everybody in our system and do a deal with Uber or do a deal with Loblaws or do a deal with the local dog walker and say, you're going to give us a 15% price discount, or you're going to take those PC Optimum points and convert them to equity. Think about that now. Loyalty points converted to equity. So I spend $100 at Loblaws and I get another $1.50 in equity on my house. And that's amazing. And then the last important point to make is the more equity you hold in your home, the less you pay on a monthly basis, right? So just like paying off your mortgage, if you're in a $500,000 condo and you bought it with $500,000, you don't have a mortgage, you don't pay anything beyond the carrying costs, the condo fees and taxes and maintenance, right? So same thing in Key, only it's a nice linear slope. The more you contribute on an equity basis, the less you pay on a monthly basis, to the point where all you're paying is the carrying costs for the suite.
Wow, it's crazy. You know, one of the couple of things that came up in Rob's little talk there is that I've actually had conversations with people who have said, you know, if I get a mortgage, I'm only allowed to pay more on one day of a year. Which is that's the way it is. That's the open mortgage situation. So imagine being able to say, hey, I want to put more in this month, but I want to take out some month. I mean, can you imagine renting a place where you say to the landlord, oh, okay, the rent is $2,100, that's fine, but I'd like to pay $2,200, and when I leave, I want that $100, you know, to go to equity, so that if you do sell, I get a piece of that back. They would just laugh at you. And what I think that we all notice about our model and what we're trying to accomplish is that there's not just one fix that could be made in this, you know, in the condominium kind of world. You actually have to take the whole thing, tip it upside down, shake it loose, and then kind of rebuild it from the ground up. But I think it'd be also really valuable to talk at this point about, you know, that monthly payment that you make. And as Rob alluded to, the more you put in, the more equity you get, but also at the same time, you're also paying less on a monthly basis. But where we really start is that the monthly payment that you make on a unit is kind of geared for the most part to market rents in that neighborhood. So imagine you've got 2 condominium buildings. You've got a traditional condominium building that was built a year ago, and you've got a Key Living building that was built. And on the 22nd floor, you get a 1-bedroom that is $2,100. In our model, it would be slightly less than $2,100. So that's number one. But the other thing is, that in this building, you've got 80 to 90% of the people that live there are tenants, and in this building, the Key Living building, 100% of the people that live there are owner occupants. And I think that that's something that just kind of blows my mind. We haven't seen that in Toronto probably since the 70s, right? When people chose condos so that they could, lock and go kind of thing. But I thought it would be really worthwhile to do a little side-by-side comparison of the traditional ownership and rental model against what Key is all about. And I think you'll find this really valuable. So obviously in our model, $15,000 deposit or down payment, no mortgage. You don't have to qualify for a mortgage. And by the way, one of the things that stresses most people out about buying is having to qualify for a mortgage. I've owned a house for 20 years. And the last house that I bought and I built, I had to refinance because I kind of overspent on it. And even though my debt to value was like 50%, the hoops that I had to go through in order to get that mortgage, it was insane. In fact, I kind of joke that when I got the mortgage, they said, well, we have to pay off your credit cards. And I said, that's totally fine. I'm going to do that anyways, because I had to put everything to finish my house on my credit card. So of course I want to pay that off. So not only did they pay off directly my credit cards, but they canceled all my credit cards, which was, was mind blowing. So that's that's a real concern, not having a mortgage. Obviously, we have a very, very simple process in taking a unit. You walk in, I like it, you fill out some paperwork, and you move in. Like it's literally that simple. And as Rob had said before, a secure tenancy. that unit is yours for life. Big tech-enabled lifestyle that goes along with it. And if you want to leave, you just say, hey, I'm leaving on your phone, and off you go. With the traditional ownership, obviously you're paying more. You've got a mortgage that you have to apply for. You have to go through the big steps and closing costs in order to get there. There's a lot of kind of opaque fees and inefficiencies in that. I mean, you don't actually know what the bottom line is when you buy something, right? There's so many moving costs, legal and land transfer taxes and water hookups and bill paying and all this sort of stuff. And of course, if you're renting, no down payment, no mortgage, that obviously is one of the simplest ways, but you don't get to build equity. So that's something there. And so, really, this is an opportunity for people to start growing their equity much faster. What I would say to realtors is that, if you have a client that has a good deposit, has great credit, can get a mortgage, has the closing cost, is going to be in their place for a number of years, you should 100% sell them a condo, because they're gonna use that mortgage to leverage and build income much quicker. But that's 10% of the people. That's not even 10%. I don't know what the number is. Probably 2% of the people. And we're all fighting for that, and I get it. But this is a model for people that haven't been able to get into the ownership model. They don't qualify for whatever reason. They're new to the country. They're self-employed. The gig economy is so big right now that it's, we want to, on our tax returns, put as little money as possible, and we want to write off stuff so our income is so much lower. But that doesn't help you when you want to get a mortgage. And so we actually sold a couple of units that stick out in my head. One was to a young lady who moved from Dubai. Great job, landed in Toronto with an unbelievable job, $150,000 in the bank, decided, I'm gonna go buy a condo. Guess what? Could not get a mortgage. Even with the money that she had, she couldn't get a mortgage. So she saw our model and decided to jump into that. Another guy who, again, got his permanent residency card, I think from Australia, and trying to get into the market. And every time he was, he'd put an offer on something, he would get, bumped out by a higher offer, and the prices kept going up and up and up. And he said, no, I may have to just reevaluate that I'll ever be able to own in the city. So we're seeing this happen, playing out in real life. I'll talk a little bit about our condos. We've got LOIs on 3,300 units, I believe, basically in the downtown core. Obviously, if we were to start, we wouldn't be able to offer any of those because they're not built yet. So if we were to, it would take probably 3 to 5 years to get those built. Sorry, but we do have a backup plan, and I think Rob will talk a little bit about that in a second, because we will be able to actually start offering units probably in as close as 2 to 3 months. So really excited by that kind of move. And I do want to talk a little bit about this, the machinery that kind of runs in the background. And it really the journey starts very, very early on. We could go onto our website. You could view what's available in our buildings, what suites are available. You could see the monthly cost of each unit, how your equity would grow. What other things would you see? Basically everything to see what kind of features are in the building, so on and so forth. But you could also kind of slide that little juice bar to say, okay, so the monthly payment is $2,100, but how much would my equity grow if I put in $2,200? And so you can actually play with it and really determine, and they basically set, there's a minimum, but you can set your rent or your monthly payment to something that you're really comfortable with. And then of course, everything runs on an app that will be on your phone. You'll be able to access every service possible. You can imagine you're out late with your friends and you realize, I've got to go home and feed and walk the dog. No, actually, no, I don't. I can just do it on my phone. I can hit a button, someone can go into my apartment, through facial recognition, go feed and walk my dog. I can have my dry cleaning picked up. I can have my food delivered. I can have my apartment cleaned, painted. I can do a whole bunch of things, and also, see what's going on in the building. And I think, Rob, you had a great story that I was listening to today about getting notifications in your building. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that. You're on mute.
Sorry. It's
Okay.
just crazy how behind the times most of our buildings are. It's like we're still living in the 80s. You know, when COVID hit, and a member of my family is immunocompromised, and you know we're in a condo, 39th floor, a penthouse in City Place, and so it's really difficult to do things like go to the garbage room, recycle, go get mail, you know, go to the lobby to pick up food deliveries, and so there was a committee established in the building. A couple of very nice people volunteered and said, look, we're gonna help people who may be medically isolated or senior or you know whatever the situation is. And but I had to go down to the lobby in order to read the notice board on the concierge desk that said, if you can't come down to the lobby or the garbage room for whatever reason, you know, call this number and we'll help you out. I mean,
Right.
it's like there's got to be a better way to connect residents. And in a pandemic like this just makes that such a stark reality. There's so many things we could be doing to be communicating more effectively, to be running our building more effectively, to be more resilient as a society. And so we're going to be doing all of that with Key.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. So in the background, you can see, you know, our app working in kind of live time. So you'll always have an understanding of, you know, how much equity do I have? Where is it grown this month? You know, I want to take some out. You'll be able to do that at the touch of a button. You want to know about community events. Maybe there's a lunch and learn going on, or there's a wine tasting, or there's a barbecue, or you know, you might come home and there's a farmer's market in the lobby. You just never know. But when you have multiple buildings and multiple community managers organizing these things, there's going to be a great experience almost every day. And then finally, or not finally, but let's talk a little bit about maybe Rob, you can talk about the patents that we have going on right now.
Yeah, so we really are a technology company driving change in real estate. So we're a tech company first, we're a real estate company second. And we've centered initially on a financial technology or fintech set of innovations, which is really all about ownership on demand or home ownership as a service. We kind of call it both, and we may settle on one term over another. But we filed 2 patents so far, with several more to come. And it really, the core patents, our seminal patents, are really around this on-demand ownership system that lets people access real estate very easily for a fraction of the cost, none of the hassles, none of the capital risks, none of the systemic risks, just taking all that stuff off the shoulders of the individual, from capital to risk, and putting it on the shoulders of the corporation, just like software as a service did. And so more patents to come there. We've got lots of cool stuff happening on the equity issuance and redemption side, on getting global investors into real estate fractionally, all kinds of cool stuff. But we got lots on the go too around prop tech and you know, how do buildings function, and how do you relate to your building, and how are services delivered, all that kind of thing. And then on the marketplace side, you know, we'll be patenting our ideas around conversion of loyalty points to equity, among many other things. So lots more to come. We've got a really innovative team, and we're very excited about the future.
Yep. So I think the other sort of aspect of it is, you know, we've been talking to, I've been watching this journey over the last year, and it's incredible. You know, you have an idea like this, and then you don't really even realize how deep you have to go in order to achieve the goal of actually getting this thing to launch. And, you know, we literally, you know, you bang your head some days, and other days you have remarkable successes. But, you know, we've had to have conversations with provincial government, the municipal governments, the federal governments, and how do we deal with the tax laws? How do we deal with, you know, any condominium act, residential tenancies act? I mean, there's so many moving parts that I can't even begin to tell you the work that has been going on with our team now, 18 people, 16 or 18 people now, on a daily basis, as we try to kind of move this needle to achieve this home ownership dream for a lot of people. And we've talked to, you know, while millennials seem to be the natural fit for this, I do know that you as realtors are dealing with a lot of investors. And I think investors are, you know, obviously a big part of this because, you know, there was a time when you could go out and buy a condo, you know, put 20% down and you knew that you had a good, nice, positive cash flow. And then that has slowly got eroded to, you know, to zero cash flow. And you think, well, that's okay because my condo is, you know, is still appreciating with value. And then it got down to, you know, I'm losing $200, $300, $400 a month. Now I'm probably losing $1,000 a month. And that was still not a horrible position to be in. But what we realize now, I guess, especially through pandemic, where, you know, you've got tenants who stop paying, or you got, you know, crazy vacancies, that sort of thing, that starts to really erode at your capital position. And so for us, what we're also noticing is that people, not just millennials, but investors are coming into our model. And the great thing about it is that although you don't get a unit, you get to share in the appreciation of the whole portfolio. And you're coming in under the same terms that we're giving those pension funds, wealth sovereign funds, endowment funds, insurance companies of the world. You're getting that. So you're not getting a call in the middle of the night saying, my, you know, appliance isn't working, or there's a drip out of my ceiling, or whatever it is. And so that's, you know, really a very unique thing, a part of our model. Plus, you don't have to put down 20%. You could put down, starting at $500, you could do that little. So I'm one of the unfortunate ones. I didn't get into the rental market early enough. I watched a lot of my friends buy multiple condos and do extremely well. But I ended up buying a boat and a car and, you know, wasting my money that way, but having more fun, I suppose. The other thing is that, you know, the other needle that has moved substantially, I talked a little bit about it, is that tax component. And because of the way the structure is now, you can actually use your RSPs and TFSAs to actually get into the model. So, so we're seeing millennials, we're seeing investors, and then finally we're seeing parents who are embracing this. And I'm I think a classic example of that. I have two kids, they're 15 and 11. I love them dearly, but I don't want them to live with me forever. I do want them to go out and find their own place in the world. But what I know about their ability to save right now is probably pretty pathetic. And I'm not in a position where I could go out and buy them a couple of condos. But what I could do is help them get into Key at that $15,000 level. And then they could just actually be passive investors until such time that they're ready to actually move into those units. So good news for Penny, because her 15,000 will actually go up a lot longer than Oliver's, who's 15 right now. So, but the great thing about it is that, you know, and I use this example a lot, and it really drives home the model quite well, is that, you know, Oliver will, you know, he'll probably take a 2-bedroom and rent out to a roommate one of the bedrooms in the apartment. And if he collects, let's just say for argument, $1,500 a month, but he puts 500 of that into Key Living, what happens is, number one, he's growing his equity position in Key, but number two, he's actually lowering his monthly payments. So it's a bit of a double whammy. Penny, on the other hand, she might be a bit of a world traveler. So what I can see her doing is traveling more. And while she's gone, she's Airbnb-ing her place. We're managing it, making sure it doesn't get destroyed, obviously. And then when she comes back, her account is topped up. So very easily, you can get in at, you know, that sort of $15,000 level, and you can build your equity to a point, you know, over 3 to 5 years, where now that money is really, you could, if you wanted to, at that point, buy that picket fence, you know, that are your own condo. Actually, somebody did say the other day that we're building a vertical picket fence, which that was kind of a cool comment. So that's really cool. The other part of it is that, you know, we obviously believe in that social prosperity component. Community is super important to us, just as the financial prosperity. And so we want to, you know, really endeavor to create great experiences for the people that live there. As I said, you know, come home and there's a farmer's market in your lobby, or there's something going on. And what we like to say is that you're always invited, but you're never obligated. And so, you know, you might come home from a hard day and there's a barbecue going on the roof, and it's, you know, $10 for a burger or a veggie patty or something like that. And you could just go and do that and meet your neighbors and talk about what you're doing. And I think it's a much different environment that's we exist in right now. And obviously, as you know, as we're all seeing with COVID, it's going to require community to come together and actually help us. And if we're all living in a building where we're all owners, that's going to be a lot easier. So one of the interesting things is that when we first went out to market with this, and by the way, we've got two very big banks that are helping us raise our money. It's a very exciting time. But one of the first questions that we got asked was, how many units have you sold? Well, at that point, we actually hadn't sold any. So we decided that what we wanted to do is kind of help figure out a way that where we could sort of build demand. We started a keychain program. This is the only kind of sales component to this talk, but basically it's a $1,000 keychain that you buy. It's completely refundable at any time. And what it does is it reserves your place in line. You know, we wanted to cap it at about 150 people. We thought that was a reasonable number. And we wanted to, make it extremely easy. So you're not doing multiple offers on rentals. You basically, your number comes up and you pick it and you get to take a unit that's available or pass and wait for a bigger unit if you want to. So very, very simple. And I'm more than happy to take that offline. I don't want to take up too much time talking about that. This is Han Lee. He is our first keychain buyer. He was actually a realtor who lives in Richmond Hill and obviously struggling to get into the market in Toronto. And so we had a big dinner. We presented to him this shirt where he's key holder 00001, and he'll get the first choice. But that was a very exciting time. There's Rob there doing all that. And I do want to, Rob, maybe before we go into the Q&A, because I don't know if we didn't have a slide on it, but let's talk about the units that are going to be coming available very soon.
Sure. So we're over the course of the fall, we're assembling 164 suites, I think is our target. We're buying about 95 of those from a couple of private portfolios that are held by, one's a private REIT and the other one's an investment company that owns 25 suites. And so we're buying those, getting good pricing on them. They are tenanted, but there's a few vacant suites in the portfolio and more will be coming up over time as they have about a 25% turnover rate. So we anticipate being able to fill up with key holders into all those suites over the next couple of years, but at least we'll get 20 or 30 key holders into those suites. And then we're gonna do two different things, and Mark is leading the effort on both of these fronts. And one is we're going to make an offer to the thousands of condos that are underwater right now in Toronto because of the gutting of Airbnb ghost hotels. So there are many owners who have been either subleasing them to entrepreneurs who would sign 20 leases and then put all those units on Airbnb, or they've been doing it themselves, the owners of the condos. And so that business has dried up because of the pandemic, obviously, and so these people are hurting. Very high negative monthly cash outflow. A lot of units have flooded back into the long-term rental pool. A lot of them are still vacant. And so we're going to make an offer that we can easily convert them to key, get rid of their mortgages, get rid of those financial obligations. They can roll over a bit of equity into key if they want to do that. And they're out of that difficult financial situation. So we're going to buy 50 or so of those to start, just to see how that goes. And then Mark's going to get a program going where you can, with your client, if you already have clients or you got some clients in sort of your missing middle that currently don't qualify, but you'd like, what if they could get in with key? Well, you can go condo shopping. So they can find the condo they want with your help, and we'll buy it with them, right? So all they're going to need is $15K. We'll take care of the rest. No mortgage. And as long as the condo, we think it's a good unit, it's going to be accretive to our portfolio and do well in the long run, we'll happily buy it with them. So we're gonna test that for at least 20 buyers. So I think that'll go quickly. So if you've got interested people in your CRM, by all means, bring them forward to Mark sooner than later.
Beautiful. Thanks, Rob. So I thought I'd just talk a little bit about sort of the three questions that we get asked the most. That makes these are ones that will just be easy for you to digest. The first one is, what do I own? And so basically you get to co-own the suite with Key, and your equity position gets to grow in value with your home. Everyone who lives there is an owner resident. They can live there as long as they want. And when you're ready to move, a simple cost push of a button, you can cash out, and that money will go into your bank account the day that you leave. So very, very simple equation on that regard. Rob, you want to take this one?
Yeah. So again, we've compared, so we won't belabor this, but the main point is that this isn't for everybody, but it's probably for like a kind of the 70% in we call the missing middle, who don't qualify, don't want the financial scariness. Even if they do qualify, they don't want a mortgage because they don't want the higher monthly cash outflow. They don't want to be on the hook. They don't want the personal guarantee. They don't want the rigidity and the break fees. A lot of millennials move every 3-4 years, and when you get into break fees and selling costs, having a mortgage just does not make sense. And Key is always better than renting. Okay, you're going to pay the same kind of market rent, and then, as Mark says, less over time. As the more equity you contribute, you're paying less than market rent. So it's a way to have all the freedoms of renting with the benefits of building that equity position.
Beautiful. And then I did talk about this a little bit, which is, when is it Key right for you? And obviously, if you've got the deposit, you've got those closing costs, you qualify, so on and so forth, you should totally go out and buy a condo. We're not trying to take away from that, because that is one of the mainstays of our industry. So, and then I do want to talk a little bit about, again, circling back, what's in it for you as a realtor. I think, the market or the condition of home ownership is changing so rapidly, and you can see what's happening in the United States with companies like Divvy and Zero Down and all this stuff. And Rob did mention the fact that there's like literally billions of dollars being pumped into the prop tech world to solve these problems, right? We know that in the United States the cost of raw land is getting extremely high. The cost of building supplies is getting really high, and it's really easy to build a $5 million house, but it's remarkably impossible to build a $300,000 house because it's very, very tough. And so, when you're having those conversations with your clients and you're going through the process of qualifying, I think you'll find very quickly that, they don't fit into the home ownership bucket, but they really want to own. And so your only option right now is to put them into a rental with the hopes that they'll be able to save down the road. And we all know that, pretty much once they rent, it's going to be next to impossible to get them into the home buying ring. And so really what I'm hopeful is that the agents, and listen, I go around talking to thousands of agents every year to try and get them to, to kind of think in a different term. I believe that, us as realtors, people call us because they want us to solve their number one problem, which is they need a place to live. And if we can't help them there, then we're not really doing our job. So you're going to evaluate now your client to say, look, I can't get you into this ownership because you don't qualify for whatever those reasons are. You don't have deposit, so on and so forth. You're forced to rent, or let me show you another way where you can actually get into a model where you have a home ownership component, where you're building equity so that when you do want, in 3 to 5 years, move into your own home, then you can do that. And those sort of goalposts of home ownership are actually getting closer, not farther and farther away. And so, what I would say is you give them a basic understanding of what Key is, and then you just punt them over to me, and I'll stick handle it through the goalposts. I'll keep you informed at every stretch of the conversation. I'll CC you on every meeting I have with them, every discussion I have with them. And on top of that, we decided that it would be very, very easy for us as a company to let you know every year how your client is doing in our system. The great thing about this, obviously, is that you don't have to even put pen to paper. You don't have to qualify them in any way. You just have that discussion and say, hey, this might be right for you. And if you're interested, you can, again, email me. I'll send you our brochure, which is a really great explanatory brochure. And you can also direct them to our website where they can actually dive into it, see our FAQs, all that sort of stuff. And we're building that out constantly. And so, yeah, you don't have to do anything. You just introduce them to the model, send them to the website and introduce them to me, and I'll take it from there. And when I sell them that $15,000 keychain, I'll pay you a referral fee of $1,250. Which, you know, what we did is we sort of said, look, if I could only rent somebody something, let's say a $2,500 a month rental on average, your commission is $1,250. We would just pay that referral. We've actually I've had so many conversations with agents who said, you know, I don't even want the money, but give me let me have a share of key. That's something that we're working towards. We'll get there, hopefully. But this is an opportunity now for agents to actually build up a reserve, a portfolio that will help them into retirement. That is obviously what I want to see. I want to see our industry survive. And I think that there's so many different models out there that are starting in the United States. They will somewhat bleed into Canada. I know we're a much smaller market. And I think for us as realtors, we have to be really aware of what these models are, so that, you know, even if it's not right for our clients, we understand and we can explain it to them.
Two other things, if I can just quickly add, Mark, and as Mark has said before, this lets you develop a relationship with the client. It lets you solve their problem, lets you help them into ownership. And then that's the basis for a relationship that you can cultivate. And when they're ready to move out to the white picket fence and they build great equity living in condos in Key, then they're yours. And you'll have, first crack at that buying commission for their new home. And so it's about energizing your CRM and getting more people onto the property ladder. Yeah. And that's going to generate more business for everybody, just as a result of doing that.
I think it's one of the failings. One of my early failings as a realtor was that I didn't stay in touch with people, and I didn't consider the selling process as a 20-year selling process. And if I had done a better job of that, I would have potentially made a lot more money. But people come into our lives, we sell or rent them a place, and then we never see them again. The really good agents out there, they want to stay in touch and keep those people in their inner circle all the time. I know a lot of agents really do a great job at it. I didn't, but I want to give agents an opportunity to do that. So here's my contact information. Also, Rob at Key Living. If you have bigger questions that I can't answer, I would pass them on to him. I'm going to pass it back to James, and I'm going to stop the share so we can see our faces in a bigger place.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Rob. It's so nice to see how far Key Living has come since we met last year at the RCYC dinner, where that realtor got his 0001 t-shirt. That was a great. I was actually sitting on the other side of the camera. It was a really great moment to watch, because it's nice to see when something finally comes to fruition. So we do have a few questions here. I know Rob was answering them, but in case people are not watching the chat, I do want to address them again. Sure. So is the monthly cost still the same as before, even though now the down payment is $10,000 less?
Yeah, so the cost reduction is a little bit less than if it was $25K. So it's a perfectly proportional thing. So if you're in a 500K suite, the $25K would have given you 5% off the variable payment portion, whereas now the $15K will give you 3% off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right, but then if you get up to 25, you're back to that 5%.
Right. And then Ashley had a question. How does it work for principal I can't even read this. I'm like really
principal residency tax exemption. Yeah,
I don't have my contacts in, and I'm like really struggling.
It applies. It's naturally part of our system. Every owner resident is a principal resident, so your equity gain is not taxable.
Awesome. We have another question from Ivan. When is the monthly payment calculator going live on your site?
I answered him. Another week. Just talked to the developer who's going to be posting it this morning, and she's getting close.
Great. So again, another question from Ivan. Also, are there certain types of units you're looking to build / prioritize in the new buildings? Something that you don't see in the market that you'd like to intro?
Yeah, I mean, building for investors, the vast majority of things that are being built are, 470 square foot, 1 bedrooms, right?
Right.
And that's a function of building with short-term thinking, building for investors. So we're going to think more about what's the real demographic requirement as more people realize, well, gee, now I could afford to live downtown. And with Key, it's so easy to move from a batch to a 1 to a 2 to a 3. As I get married or have a kid or have 2 kids, I might just choose to stay in the system because I can change addresses with essentially no cost. I mean, you just on the app say I want to move to a 1-bedroom on Tuesday at 11:30, and just like Uber, boom, it happens. Our guys show up, pack you, move you, unpack you, and you're done with no fees.
Right.
And your equity is ported seamlessly with no fees. And so we think we'll have higher demand for a more diverse representation of units in terms of size, in terms of bedrooms, bathrooms. So we'll see how that goes over time. And we're going to get experience with buying existing suites that are 1 and 2-bedroom, but mostly 1-bedrooms for now, but a smattering of 2 bedrooms in there, and some even larger things, maybe some townhomes. So we'll certainly get some experience with different form factors, and hopefully we'll have a good idea by the time we're building our first building from the ground up.
One of the things one of the things I love that you talk about, Rob, is how, the way that we're building condos right now with acres and acres of underground parking. And do we really need that when we're living in the city, when we have such access to car share? And I think that we talk a lot about the sort of big picture stuff, where a Key building, we'll spend, we're buying them off developers at a discount because they don't have to go through those crazy expenses to get the building built. But then we're reinvesting in the buildings in terms of triple pane glass or geothermal or green roofs or wind turbines or, sensors that will, automatically change lights. And one of the classic examples that Rob uses is there's just this idea behind, LED light bulbs, because a builder, will put incandescent lights in a building because after a year of the building being occupied, they walk away and they don't have to worry about it. So why would they pay $5 on an LED light bulb when a 50-cent light bulb will do just as well? So us as being owners of the building, we can make these investments, recognizing that the payoff is going to be down the line. And again, we will just get ahead of that so much more.
Awesome. We've got one more question from Samantha that we're going to wrap up to keep people on schedule. What would you say to a millennial who is interested but skeptical because it seems too good to be true? For a lack of a better phrase, what's the catch?
Well, there really isn't one. And we've designed it to be catch free. I mean, I guess you could say the catch is we haven't raised our financing yet. So I don't have anything to move you into yet. And so when we come back and we say, okay, our investment banks have achieved, done their process and we're funded and we can acquire the suites that we want to acquire and get people into them, then we're going to run a proof of concept. And so you'll be able to watch it for some months, and we'll be very transparent with how it goes. We'll let everybody know how it's going. We'll give you access to the people that are living in our suites, and they'll be able to comment and tell you what it's like to work with Key and to have home ownership on demand. And so you'll know a lot more 6 months from now than we know now. But we're going to run a proof of concept and we're going to open it up to everybody.
Awesome. Well, I want to wrap this up by saying thank you to Mark and Rob and the rest of the Key Living team. And this was a very successful first YPN Master Series of 2020. And I would like to invite everyone back. Let me get the date here, Wednesday, August 5th, again at 1 p.m., where we will have our second generation YPN realtors. So YPN committee members who are second gen, whether they're grandchildren or children of current or past realtors, to share what they have to say about working with family. So thank you guys so much. And I look forward to seeing everyone on August 5th.
Awesome.
Thanks everybody.
Appreciate it. Thanks everybody. Thanks for coming out. Have a great day.